Good morning or good evening. Welcome to the show. This is Psycho Silver and my name is Jerome. I do thank you for joining me today. I hope that you're counting your wealth in ounces and also that you're holding your word, especially to yourself. I got a whole bunch of news for us, like I always do, because this is a news show and I love finding the most interesting news and bringing it to you. It's always on the same topics. We're looking at precious metals and sound money. We're looking at the ruthless reign of the dollar. We're looking at the dark psychology of poverty. What is happening in the fourth turning? What is happening in the Great Reset? The debt hyperbubble collapse? Or is it a great awakening? Do we have any power to that extent? Big things are changing and it's happening so rapidly, it's tough to keep up with. And it's a little frightening. But it's kind of awesome if you do make it your job to cover the news because there's always so much of it. And with that, let's jump right into all this interesting stuff I got lined up for you. This is without a doubt the biggest news of the day, and Tim Pool has done such an excellent job of covering this, but I don't want to just let it get by me. I don't want to just ignore it because a lot of great researchers and reporters are already looking at this. It belongs at the top of every show, every day, for as long as it takes until we see some results on this front. I'll read off what Tim Pool wrote here. He wrote, This may be the biggest story of our lives and perhaps the most shocking revelation in U.S. history. This cannot be understated. So we suspected that this was happening, and I do believe, yet again, I'm going to use the same word as I always use. We're completely desensitized to the seriousness of this. We did have a leak published by The Intercept. They leaked official government documents, The Intercept did, and it shows in detail, very thoroughly, indisputably, conclusively, that we did have government agencies, particularly Department of Homeland Security and FBI, colluding, and that is the correct word, colluding with Twitter to outright censor citizens, to stop ideas, and to shape the narrative. That's what they do. And so I think many people already knew this, and I think that's the first thing many people will say. But there was always a gray area there. There was always room for some cognitive dissonance. There was always the ability of somebody to argue that, and it's inarguable anymore. And this is a very serious situation because now that it's out in the open, I need to know if something's going to be done about it, because if nothing's going to be done about this, then we really have abandoned the Constitution. There really is no rule of law. It was a cheeky argument while it lasted, that Twitter is a private company and a private company can do whatever they want. Real funny argument. It was kind of clever, but mostly just, I don't even know what to call it. Mostly just some bootlicking, cognitive dissonance, blue pill, eyes wide shut type of shit that people would just say because I guess they don't like Trump, or I don't even know the reason. But yeah, here we are. And I do hope that many of you have seen the interview on Joe Rogan with the Twitter lawyer and the CEO, Dorsey, CEO at the time, where Tim Pool did confront them directly about the censorship, about the collusion, and they denied it very straightforwardly, denied it, which was, now we know that was like, what do they call it? A bald-faced lie. It was a blatant lie. It was a shameless lie. It was a flagrant lie. It was a brazen lie. They sat there and they said that they weren't in contact with anyone from the government, that it was all their idea, that they were just super concerned about the wrong information getting out to us, and that people that suggested otherwise were probably just watching too much right-wing propaganda, or were lackeys of Trump, or racists, or who knows what the fuck they said. But it was a lie. It was an unembarrassed lie. It was an immodest lie. They lied. They lied straight to our faces. And so, once again, very conclusively proven by these document leaks. And let's see which documents exactly so we can make it crystal clear here too, right? Yeah, we'll just read these bullet points right here. Key takeaways: the work was primarily done by CISA, the Department of Homeland Security sub-agency tasked with protecting critical national infrastructure. And I do believe that they see their own power as critical national infrastructure, and voting and democracy and free and open information would be a threat to that critical infrastructure. I believe that. Next bullet point is the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and several media entities were having bi-weekly meetings as recently as August. Unreal. Department of Homeland Security considered countering disinformation relating to content that undermines trust in financial systems and courts. Hey, that is directly for us, Silver Stackers. That is directly for us right there. Because we can't have trust in our financial system because it is trustworthy, because they're doing the right thing, because they abide by rules and law and free markets and service to the people that elect them. No. We have to trust them. We have to trust them because it's their job. I guess it's their job to trick us into trusting them. The FBI agent who primed social media platforms to take down the Hunter Biden laptop story continued to have a role in the Department of Homeland Security date policy discussions. So there you have it. This one's not really my bag. This is not my area. I do macroeconomics, geopolitics, sound money, and precious metals, so I'm not going to get too deeply into this. But if by any chance this is the first time you're hearing about this, you need to go and check it out for yourself. I do recommend Tim Pool. He's very fair-minded and thorough, and this is just absolutely fucking disgusting. On to the next thing. And our next biggest story of the day, it's almost just as big and completely related. This is completely related. We did have Elon Musk tweet, Watchell and Twitter board deliberately hid this evidence from the court, excuse me. Stay tuned for more to come. And so I don't know if this is completely unrelated or how this arose that Elon would be tweeting about this, but we've heard rumors. Elon has alluded to it, not said directly. He suggested it, that Twitter was concealing information from him, concealing information from the courts, and they didn't tell us the nature of that concealment, but we do know that we wanted to know more about the censorship. And apparently all the censorship was just supposed to be naughty people were saying wrong things. They were thinking wrong and saying wrong things. These naughty people that were all, it's okay to do that if they're naughty, right? Then we can shut them up as long as they're bad and dangerous. So we wanted some more information pertaining to that, and we didn't get it. But we do know in the processes that Elon was going through, Elon Musk, to buy Twitter, that he was requesting specific information having to do with that, and also having to do, I remember, with how many bots were active on Twitter. And what a lot of the code, because that is where the censorship would be hidden, is in the code, right? It's not all just a user, it's also encoded. And they were very opaque. It appeared to me they were very shifty with providing that essential information. And so you do have Elon Musk saying here again that they hid evidence. And if they hid it from the court too, well, I guess it depends on what court it is, if they're a court with integrity or not. It could be serious shit that they're hiding evidence from a court. But I guess that depends if you're in the right tribe or not in the right. If you're in the wrong tribe or the right tribe, whether they take it seriously that you hide information from the court, right? All right, now let's get to the stuff that's more in my domain. I was getting a little fired up there. Next up, we do have this article from Zero Hedge here. And this is big news. This is, I mean, as far as my show goes, this is the biggest news, but the other news is just earth shattering. And this is just a tier below that, to be honest. Here we have Zero Hedge by the anonymous author, Tyler Durden, writing, anti-Russian alliance fractures after Japan decides to stay in Russia's, I don't know how to say that word, in their energy project. And so we do have here Russia and Japan working together to extract energy. And this was, it was formerly Exxon. And we can say here, while Europe continues the unvarnished hypocrisy of pretending it's imposing draconian sanctions against Russian oil and gas, instead it is merely buying the country's natural resources via such middlemen as India and China. an exercise in virtue signaling that costs a 20% markup on the Russian prices. Less than a year since the start of the Ukraine war, some countries have had enough of pretending. Today, the Japanese government decided to officially screw the sanctions and remain involved in the formerly Exxon-led Sakhalin-1 oil and gas project in Russia, as it seeks a stable supply of energy. Who doesn't, despite international sanctions on Moscow over the invasion of Ukraine? And Japan is pretty much the tightest of allies. Who's closer to us than Japan? Maybe Britain, and that's about it. So if they're not going along with the sanctions, there is no sanctions. There is no sanctions if they're not going along with it. And where do we go from here? I don't know. ExxonMobil, which held 30% in the Sakhalin-1, announced in March that it would withdraw from the project. But after vacillating for more than a half year, Japan decided not to follow Exxon's footsteps. Oh, I like this part here. Translation: the upcoming G20 will be rather awkward, as Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, an anchor pillar for the G7 in Asia, may decide to sit at the table next to Xi and Putin. Oh, so now it's going to be like a reality show? Where is the Japanese Prime Minister going to sit? The whole world is watching. Is he going to sit at the lunch table with the gangsters or the jocks? There is no sanctions. The sanctions are done, which might turn out to be a bad thing, to be honest, because if the sanctions aren't working and we have these bloodthirsty maniacs determined to hurt Russia in one way or another, who knows in which way that could escalate. I mean, it seems we're on the verge in so many different areas right now. This seems relevant. We have a tweet from FX Hedge here. They write, China's stock route erases returns for 99% of the nation's mutual funds. Ouch. Once again, on the topic of censorship, we do have a tweet from James Anderson here. He writes, Chris Marcus originally found the clip and remains an all-timer in terms of how scared partners CME Group, COMEX, and supposed regulator CFTC were February 21st. And that is during the silver squeeze. That was the initial silver squeeze. It almost got away from them. And I would hope that all of you have seen this video. But even if you haven't seen this video, it's time for you to see it. And even if you've seen it a bunch of times, let's watch it again.
Unique to many respects. The events around the silver markets happened, shortly after I took over, I think in late January. And I think it's important to distinguish what an equity space with what happened in our markets, in the future space, specifically with the silver contract. And in many respects, the resiliency and the market structure of the futures market really were able to tamp down what could have been a much worse situation in the silver markets. And just pointing to a couple things that I've observed over the past couple of weeks, and I shared with my colleagues within the U.S. government, and that are either unique to many respects to the equity space entirely. We have sort of history and precedent in the future space. We have a match order book, don't have rules. We have T+1 settlement. The clearing infrastructure as a general matter historically within the future space is built in and very strong. Initial margin, daily mark-to-market, position limits.
All right. You got the gist of it. I had a little bit of clipping there, but I think you got the gist of it. Here we had James Anderson writing, head of the CFTC, on how COMEX silver market had the market structure to tap down what could have been a much worse situation. Free market is a very dangerous situation they can't be having. And then the origin, the reason we got on this thread, is another excellent short thread from VBL's Ghost. And he writes here, there's no greater power in gold futures than the government ability to throttle price for geopolitical, which means Russian war, and domestic, which means inflation, optics. They're throttling the price for optics, having to do with the war, having to do with inflation. If this doesn't make you see the power of rehypothecation and market structure, then you can't be helped. Also oil. And there you have very clearly the start date of the April gold tamp. And you got bar after bar straight down there. Next, BBL's Ghost writes, and this creates news that gold isn't an inflation hedge and gold doesn't hedge war. The truth is called isn't a free market. Gold is captive to dollar hegemony and the power that comes with that. People have been underestimating this power for decades. I think we're underestimating it right now. Remember when they tamped silver down in the February spike above 30? They admitted it. Watch the video. If you don't think they tamped gold down after the March spike when the war started, I cannot help you. Yep, that's very true. And this is one of the reasons that I will explain to all stackers, you got to be in this for the long haul. You have to have conviction. These are very, very big structures, big forces. This takes a long time to play out. And no one should be in this for the overnight. And it's very discouraging and very sad that to be doing the right thing, what I think is the right thing, also puts you at odds with the structure that you live under. Here we have an article from Al Jazeera. And it simply states that the Eurozone inflation jumps to a record 10.7%. And we are just along for the ride, aren't we? Maybe not necessarily us because we're not in the Eurozone, but I just mean people in general are they're very accepting of this inflation, very accepting of it. Perhaps not until we're completely on the edge or over it will we push back. Here's a tweet from Natalie Winters. And I haven't figured out, so I have the source document for this, but I haven't figured out like who leaked it or where it came from, if it was part of that Intercept leak or where this came from. Maybe it's public knowledge. I can't tell you that, but it's very interesting. She does write, representatives from JP Morgan Chase attended virtually all the Department of Homeland Security meetings about federal government efforts to censor disinformation on social media. Are they laying the groundwork for debanking to become an even more mainstream strategy? Yes, they are. That is the social credit system. That is the CBDC. That is how they will punish you for wrongthink, especially if you're putting it out there for other people to engage in, right? And there you have very clearly there's participants and attendees. This is, again, CISA. This has to be from the same leak, right? So we have the notes from the CISA meeting, and in all these meetings, you do have a representative whose name has been redacted from JP Morgan Chase attending all those meetings. And this is why it's so fun to do a silver channel that's about macroeconomics. Do you see how it's all interconnected? Money is the root of all evil. And I don't mean the lack of money is the root of all evil. I mean the system of money. And there's so many of these kinds of tweets that it's kind of confusing. You don't know if they're talking about the one that just happened or if this was a new one. Japan sells, while this is on the month, we have 48 billion in yen bonds and second non-competitive sale. And I did make us a chart here. I hope you like my chart. This is 4 years of the Japanese yen crashing versus the dollar right here. And this blue line here, this goes back to 2019. A little before that, you do see this blue line is the yen losing its value versus the dollar. And this orange line right here, this is Japan spending its foreign exchange currency. So it's non-yen currencies that it holds in reserve. It's spending those to buy back yen to strengthen it. So they're trying to keep the yen strong in any way they can because it's crashing. And the reason that it's crashing is because they are one of the countries that have chose the route of holding the bond yields down. And the way they hold the bond yields down is they print a bunch of money. Long story short. So you could let the yields rise and it gets out of control because of the super high interest that must be paid on the yields. And that causes disaster by default because the high interest rates cause defaults, liquidity crisis. Or you can go the other way and you can suppress the bond yield. And with the suppression of the bond yield, you have to create a lot of currency, which causes inflation. So you are these nations, entire nations are a clown car bouncing off of one guardrail to the other. It's either hyperinflation or hyper debt bubble collapsing via liquidity crisis. I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to make it. I hope I make that simple. I hope I make that simple. They have to make money to keep the interest under control, or they let the interest get out of control and businesses go under because of it. Does that make sense? I hope so. We do have big silver news today. This is a post from Ditch the Deep State on Wall Street Silver. COMEX, November COMEX Silver, day one deliveries. Practically nobody issues a delivery notice. Maybe silver's off limits. I don't know. Registered gold down by 4 tons. Loomis vault down 9%. Brinks down 2.5%, plus 2 tons out of the vault. Registered silver's down 790,000. That's a lot. And mostly from the JP Morgan vault, which is down 3.7. So where does that leave us? Where is our grand total of silver now? Oh yeah, end of day in the registered category is 34,700,000. And I did get to update my board, because now we're down to the 34 handle, and that's going to be 33 in the blink of an eye. Probably tomorrow, watch. 33 is a lucky number. And here we do have this beautiful chart of the registered silver being completely drained out. And we're on trajectory to be out by, I don't know, January or February. But people that understand these things and know them well, better than me, do believe that once we are under 30 thereabouts, that you run into other problems. And so you could effectively have a default far before 30. But we're right here on the chart where he did write effective default. They already had to make some adjustments on the way they do it. And I did make this graphic for Wall Street Silver. We got the ape with the game over on front of the, but I didn't get any likes. I wanted some likes on this one. You guys broke my heart. I thought it was kind of simple and maybe, I don't know, simple-minded, but I thought it was cool. I'm going to use it somewhere else because I like this funny little graphic here. Okay, on to the next thing. You probably don't like it here either. I love this tweet here from Ponzi Finance. He's responding to this. This was CNBC here, and just, 8 minutes apart, one headline says, "Hold your nose and sell to brace for possible market downturn," Kramer says. 8 minutes before that. Oh, I have this cut off. I'm sorry, guys. That is poor. "Hold your nose and sell to brace for possible market turndown," Jim Cramer says. And then 8 minutes before that, charts suggest the market has more upside to the end of the year. Also Jim Cramer. So he says both, right? This is just A/B testing. This is clickbait. This is literally clickbait. And Jim Cramer is a persona. Jim Cramer is a product. He's not an actual genuine person trying to help you invest. He's a persona, and they've built a marketing scheme, a marketing modality around him, and they harvest your attention and your clicks. And so it doesn't matter that completely contradicts itself. There's no way to feel about it, except if you didn't know that that's what was actually happening, then now you know, right? But I did love the way Ponzi Finance replied to this. He writes, "The goal is confusion, kind of like a deer freezing when it sees headlights. Great for keeping naive baggies," he means bag holders, "great for keeping naive baggies dazed and in the game. Very profitable endeavor. CNBC, also known as the central bank news channel, is best at befuddlement." It's just an awesome tweet. See, there's someone that I would love to get on this show to interview. Ponzi Finance. I'm going to reach out. You guys help me get to 500 subscribers. I'll call it. I'll say when I get to 500 subscribers and I have a good 100 shows or something like that, I'm going to get this guy on this show because he's a really good one in the Ponzi Finance there. And here we have potentially the most interesting news, not the biggest news, but the most interesting. I did find this article and I didn't know about this, and I research this stuff every day. Tesla did hold talks over buying a stake in Glencore. Glencore is a huge mining company, and we have speculated. It's been talk in the silver space for a long time now. When is Elon going to go after the silver? When is Elon going to buy a mining company? When is he going to start his own mining company? And we think about silver so much that I think in some ways we do miss the bigger picture. because silver is the truth. It is the light. Silver's where it's at. But silver is not the most important piece of the puzzle when it comes to these electric vehicles. It's a piece of the puzzle, and it could become an Achilles heel if we do drain the lot and there is a serious shortage and the prices really do fly high. But it's a little more, I mean, we've already seen it. It's a little more testy with these rare earth metals, with the battery metals, and especially the ones that are concentrated in areas that are sort of outside the control of the US, right? So let's just read a little bit of this article here. Citing unnamed sources familiar with the matter, FT said Tesla discussed buying 10 or 20% of Glencore last year and continued negotiations in March of this year, when the Swiss firm's chief executive, Gary Nagel, visited the carmaker's factory in Fremont, California. Talks concluded without an agreement due to Tesla's concern about Glencore's coal mining business and the impact on environment. Tesla spent the past year signing pacts with several producers for battery metals in an effort to secure future supply of key ingredients for its electrical batteries. Lithium, cobalt, nickel. We know this, there was the massive default on the nickel, on the COMEX. They already defaulted once, and they're not going to make a big deal about it on the news. They don't want you to care about it. That's not something you should be caring about. But the COMEX is already defaulted once, and it was on the nickel, and people were burned for hundreds of millions of dollars. And it just says here he's worried about the lithium as well. Things we know, but this is what's the right word for this? This is a signpost. This is a footprint. There's a little bit of evidence here. I don't know if silver will be first. It might be platinum, or it might be something unexpected. But I think that we will see a flurry of moves to secure these resources. I think they're just trying to keep it quiet right now. They don't want a lot of noise around it. They don't even want the noise of these big, huge deals being struck. But eventually it's going to have to happen, where you're going to see it's going to be like piranhas or sharks in a pool, and they're just going to attack these mining companies and scoop them up as fast as they can, because these are truly the limiting factor of the smart world, of the electric world, of the electric vehicles and smart everything in your home, and the high-tech world that they keep promising us, which I don't even know if it's feasible. But it's going to depend greatly upon, it's just energy and metals. You agree with that? Tell me what you think. All right, I got a few more for you. GameStop in the news again. GameStop in the news again. We had one user here that did buy $500,000 worth of GameStop. And I need to scroll back up. I didn't retweet it, but I do have some more info on GameStop. All right. So I'm not the expert on GameStop, and it was news to me that GameStop is becoming a thing again. But here's one tweet with a lot of likes, and I will just assume that it's true. Chuck Hodel writes, GameStop is officially red on the day after being up more than 15% and being halted twice. It got halted twice today. Every single shareholder should be livid. No news, no explanation. So I don't know. I do believe that the short squeeze is still on. Like, not everybody sold their positions. I'm not the expert. I don't want to get too far down into a path that I'm not qualified or prepared to speak on. I thought it had basically died down. Apparently not, though. Wall Street Bets is all over this. We see people buying huge chunks of shares again, and there's a lot of outrage right now on Twitter over GameStop again. And this is a whole year and a half later. The saga has not concluded. Once again, Chuck Hodel writes, breaking, shorts never close their GameStop positions, and 20% intraday highs only to be halted twice and dropped thereafter. Tell you all you need to know. Sorry for yelling. Doug G writes, let's all pretend nothing is happening. # market manipulation. Man, I would love to get market manipulation trending. Everything that we've seen in today's episode of Psycho Silver, censorship, market manipulation, the truth struggling to be set free. And I believe every bit as much. I don't like the style of investing that GameStop is. I don't like that they're just, well, fine, they want to make money, but I'm not in this just to create chaos is all I'm saying. is I don't want to just create chaos and be I'm not just trying to be here someone that's an agitator and being subversive. Excuse me. Subversive. I'm not just trying to be subversive, agitator, rebel, rebellious, and cause harm and chaos in that way. I really believe in silver, and there is a little bit of that energy in GameStop, but I don't blame them. I understand them. But we share the common problem, I guess you could say. We share the common obstacle. All right, we'll read one last tweet on this. This is from Daddy Jr. 2.0. Anyone want to take a crazy wild guess when GameStop was halted? And there you see I would guess right here probably. And he writes, Gary Gensler really needs to call it quits. He's literally just in the way, and he's ugly. Get this, it rose and halted. It dropped an even higher percentage. No halt. Gary Gensler is an absolute disaster. Ouch. Maybe that was a little too mean. I'm not editing it out though. All right, got 2 more items of news for you. I did want to read this tweet from Santiago Capital. And he writes, think of the monetary system like a game of musical chairs. USD base money, which is reserves, physical cash and coins, are the chairs. All other USD monetary aggregates, M2, M3, securitized debts, loans, US credit extended, etc., are people circling the chairs. This is directly related to the milkshake. This is directly related to the battle between inflation and liquidity crisis. It is the clown car bouncing off the rails. There's always more money loaned out than there is actual money in existence to pay it back. So the system, by its very design, is going to cause some people to default in their ability to pay back. But when they don't want those, everything's interconnected, everything's a derivative, everything's repackaged, resold, rehypothecated, one big default can cause a hell of a lot of problems for everyone. So they don't want the default, and therefore they keep creating money, and the money creates inflation. And then the inflation gets too out of control and they have to stop the inflation by tightening the money supply, and then you start getting the defaults again. I hope that makes sense. He writes, the supply can be increased by extending more credit as the music plays, but it also increases demand as extending credit does not increase base money, chairs. So as credit people grows, the system becomes more and more leveraged. When the music stops, the people, demand, scramble for the chairs, supply. But just as in the game, there's not enough chairs for all the people, there is also not enough base money for all the aggregates. As a result, the value of each chair, base money, rises dramatically. If the music doesn't turn back on again quickly, then the Fed or US Treasury needs to come to the rescue and start providing more chairs, base money. Otherwise, the value price of the base money USD spikes as all the people demand start fighting each other and sending the VIX higher. It's important to understand that there are only 2 entities in the whole world who can create and provide new chairs. As noted above, it's the US Fed and the US Treasury. The reason of this is so important because what we have described so far is the US monetary system. But there is another parallel system that operates outside the US monetary system but is also denominated in USD. This is the Eurodollar system. It dwarfs the US system in size but is subject to the same supply and demand dynamics noted above, with one very notable exception. That notable exception is the fact, also noted above, that there is no entity outside the US Fed or US Treasury that can create base money when the music stops playing. The only base money that exists in the entire world is the base money found in the US monetary system. This is the dollar milkshake. Since there is no additional chairs, aka base money, in the euro dollar market, and since there was no one in the euro dollar market that can create and provide new chairs, base money, this means that the euro dollar market is not only highly leveraged, but the euro dollar market itself is leveraged. So if the music stops playing in the euro dollar market, even if it's still playing in the US market, the people demand in the euro dollar market will still start scrambling for chairs, base money in the US market. This pushes up the value, the price of the chairs, and makes it harder for music to play in the US. Where this really becomes a problem is when the music stops playing in the Eurodollar market and the US Fed is not going to supply new chairs, but are actually removing chairs, base money, due to tighter monetary policy. This makes the leverage system even more leveraged. This also explains why the Fed starts tightening monetary policy by removing chairs in the US. It's also a problem for the rest of the world operating in the Eurodollar market, and explains why the Fed determines monetary policy either directly or indirectly for the whole world. And it explains why, when the whole world starts scrambling for chairs base money, they will have to come to the US to get it. It's the periphery versus the core. This is the dollar supremacy. When allocating your assets for the storms ahead, choose wisely. So we really got the world by the balls, don't we? Maneko64, I love this guy. I would love to have him on an interview. He says gold and silver are the base as the USD is an IOU nothings currency, as John Extra once said. And there we have Extra's pyramid. It all, in this user writes, it all leads to gold in the end. Very true. That is why we're stackers right there. And he writes, sure, you can't get to the little gold triangle at the bottom without traveling through the green section above it first. Yes, very true. All right, I got one more tweet for us. This is actually a Reddit post. And I love this is one of the canaries in the coal mine here. And we did have this post by Jump, you bankrupt motherfuckers. Oh, it's third world trillionaire. And I love this chart here. Platinum to silver ratio all time. We are near an all-time low. Oh, we're at an all-time low almost of the platinum to silver ratio. So this is really important. 3 reasons this is really important, okay? Platinum might be I feel like I should start investing in platinum. First of all, the platinum supply is very low on the COMEX. Very, very low. Secondly, silver is already undervalued compared to stocks. Do we need to look at that? I have that chart. It's just take my word for it, or we can bring up a chart where you can also take my word for it. Silver is at one of its lowest ratios it's ever been compared to stocks, the Dow and the S&P. Silver is also at a very low ratio compared to commodities. Usually when commodities go up, silver goes up with the commodities, and it's not happening. So silver is undervalued compared to commodities. And so what does that mean if platinum is undervalued compared to silver? That means platinum's just smoking by. That means do I want physical platinum or do I want platinum mining companies? We're big fans of physical silver, but the leverage, guys, the gains. You shouldn't be. I'm not a big believer in paper, but I'm also not a end of the world guy either, okay? So I think there's a lot of utility in owning miners, and that's just my 2 cents. And by utility, I just mean sick gains. All right. I do hope this was an interesting and informative show. We still ran 40 minutes. I tried so hard to make it short. I swear I did. Oh man, it ended up a long show. I'm gonna just, I maybe gotta really just break them up even more than I do. I hope this helped you. I hope that I served you with this show of Psycho Silver. And please leave me feedback. Whatever you think can be better, whatever bothers you about the show, you let me know. I know it's too long. And we'll be back tomorrow for another episode. Thank you so much. I do hope that you are in good health. I really do. And if you're not in good health, I do hope that you get better. I think about that a lot. I hope you're doing well. Anyone watching this. And with that, I appreciate you. And you have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.